哈森教授的第二讲的第6段，他是在谈论朝向金融主权的独立的国际合作。他在这个里边呢，其实特别强调的是，这个经济主权中的核心主权是金融主权。为了实现政治上和经济上的独立，并且与美元外交脱钩，就需要有足够多的国家参与其中。他这个论断呢，其实很有意思。我们在很多地方去做调查研究，特别是发展中国家做调查研究的时候，发现了一个很有意思的现象。比如我们在这个厄瓜多尔啊，那这个厄瓜多尔呢是一个因金融危机而使得全国放弃本国的主权货币，全国的交易都改用美元，它是一个被美元完全覆盖了的国家。这样的国家呢，世界上还有一个，就是巴拿马。巴拿马是因为被美军入侵，这个国家没有政治主权，所以它这个全国都使用美元作为货币。而厄瓜多尔呢，尽管有国家政治主权，但是国家的经济体量太小，再想恢复本国的货币，它拿什么作为货币发行的基础呢？所以厄瓜多尔现在形成的一个很重要的金融现象，就是他在这儿要组建南方国家的银行，他叫做那个银行的那个行长他给我们的这个银行的名称呢叫做 Bank de la Sud， 就是南方银行。也就是说，他要联合拉丁美洲多个民族民主的独立国家，来形成南方货币。他们甚至把南方货币的名称都想好了，叫苏克雷。因为苏克雷呢是整个拉丁美洲争取民族独立、反抗殖民主义统治的一个英雄，所以用这个苏克雷的名字来做他们南方货币的那个名称。这一点呢，我们得在这儿说几句，就是说，因为这个得有足够多的民主国家参与其中，大家共同对抗新殖民主义时期的金融资本霸权，你们才是真正意义的民族民主独立的国家。单独哪一个，只要你的经济体量不够，你恐怕很难阻挡货币一发行，因为你没有足够的储备依据，你很可能就是通货膨胀不断。那这个金融核心主权是维护不住的。所以从这个角度来说呢，大家注意这个哈森教授讲到了这个观点，但他不像我们是在发展中国家做了大量研究的，所以我们有这样的案例，把这个案例拿来做一个支撑，大家可能方便来理解他在这段中所讲的为什么一定要是国际合作的，想形成金融主权并不容易。
How do you avoid this? To achieve political and economic independence, and you decouple from dollar diplomacy, that requires a critical mass with enough countries in it so that they can together be self-sufficient in their own essentials. This didn't exist after World War II, when Europe and the rest of the world was devastated. It didn't exist even with the non-aligned group, because the 5 countries weren't sufficient to become a bloc of their own. What's needed now is not only to be financially independent, you need your own monetary system to create your own money, so that and as a public utility, so if debts rise, the government is a creditor, the government can write down the debt, as China does. You also need your own bank clearing system. There's a technology for transferring funds over the telephone or through banks, and America had worked through Luxembourg, sort of like the island of Delos or the sacred island of Delphi, site of Delphi. Luxembourg was supposed to be independent, and that had the SWIFT bank clearing system, but it really is part of the U.S. Pentagon. It's a military system where the U.S. can threaten to create financial havoc, and Russia or other countries using it if all of a sudden you don't let any of their bank transfers take place. So other countries need to break free of the American and the European infrastructure, realizing that European is a satellite of the United States. It's the Europe has become a dead zone economically. It's being impoverished because its governments are not able to create their own money, to run their own budget deficits beyond 3% of GDP. So its governments are not able to pull their economies out of depression. They're not able to produce enough euros as public debt to become a rival vehicle for other countries to hold their central bank reserves. It can't rival the dollar. And the United States created Europe as a non-rival, as a satellite, as a dependent area. So the most recent grouping after the non-aligned group has been the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And the group, the BRICS, an alliance of Russia, China, India, South Africa, and Brazil, with Iran as an associate. The ideal is to begin by being independent economically within yourself, so you don't need the U.S. market or U.S. suppliers. You can produce your own basic needs and let the United States be isolated. What's up for grabs is Europe. How long will European populations permit the utterly corrupt Social Democratic Party or the corrupt Labour Party or the corrupt Christian Democrats or the corrupt other parties of Europe to be arms of the United States State Department? How long will Europe let European politics be like Australian politics, simply doing whatever they're told by the U.S. or Britain acting on behalf of the United States? If the rest of the world, the rest of Asia, Vietnam, other countries, China, can become wealthier and wealthier with their own resources, and together these countries have enough of their own resources to be independent, then you let the other world, as the United States has warmed, the American affluence means the flowing in from abroad. American affluence will dry up because without the empire, America won't be able to drain other countries financially. Without the dollar area, without dependence on the US dollar, on US banks, on US bondholders as creditors, the United States will not be able to essentially get the free lunch that it's been able to get really ever since World War II, as we'll be discussing in the next lecture. So that what's required is sort of not only an international, to do this, is not only an international economic capability, but you need an ideology of international law and a foreign policy whose guiding principles are predicated on blocking rent extraction through monopoly privileges and through realizing that public infrastructure is a source of production. Every country needs to be self-sufficient in food. Every country needs to be self-sufficient with its own financial and banking system. It needs to be self-sufficient in essentials, or to have real allies that are not mutually exploitative, but realize if we don't support each other, we're going to be divided and conquered by the United States. So I think that a guiding legal principle to break out and to draw the third world, Africa and Latin America, into this new alternative to dollar diplomacy is that legal principle should be written into international law that no country should be obliged to pay foreign debt by forfeiting its own natural resources or monopolies or capital investment, and should not be required to cut back living standards of labor in order to pay its foreign debt. That the right of any independent nation is economic independence, not to let itself be impoverished by foreign creditors. In other words, countries that owe dollar debt would simply negate it as essentially odious foreign debt. This foreign debt was taken on under military and political force and by a deliberate U.S. warping of their development to push their balance of payments into deficit, requiring debt to American bondholders and the International Monetary Fund, and bondholders among the client oligarchies of these countries. All these debts should be wiped out in order to wipe out the savings of the oligarchy faction, because what's at stake is a fight between democracy or socialism and oligarchy and militarized oligarchy. So throughout history, from classical Greece and Rome down to modern debtor countries, a common denominator of all democracy for 2,500 years has been debt cancellation and the ending of absentee land ownership. Democracies in Greece and Rome and subsequent Western countries did not achieve this. There was always pressure for it. There was revolutions for it. There were uprisings from it century after century, but democracy was never able to do it. The only place that was able to achieve this kind of debt cancellation and independence was through the Near Eastern rulers, from Hammurabi's Babylonia to the Neo-Assyrian and Babylonian and Persian empires in the first millennium BC. And rulers held the loyalty and support of their local populations by periodically proclaiming clean slates that annulled debts and liberated indebted bondservants and restored self-support land to debtors who'd forfeited to foreclosing creditors. This didn't occur in the West. The West, whether it's democracy or oligarchy, never had that kind of debt cancellation. Western law, ever since Rome, has been built in to European and American law that creditors have rights that are overshadow the rights of actual owners who are indebted and the population as a whole. That the finance basically becomes the center of economic planning and of resource allocation by letting creditors be in charge of resource allocation and by having creditor-controlled governments that block any kind of public or democratic or socialist control over how the economic surplus is invested. So as a transition to the next lecture, the United States finances its military spending abroad and its related diplomacy by demanding that foreign countries guarantee a stipulated part of their grain markets, their other markets, to U.S. suppliers, and that they rely on U.S. banks and U.S. creditors for the money that they need to grow, instead of being in charge of their own markets and their own financing. Finance capitalism's mode of economic control is affected through monopoly privilege of creating money and credit domestically and abroad by U.S. banks that own foreign banks. No country should let foreigners own and control the banking system because banking credit is simply created electronically, and it extracts interest, and it sends the interest abroad, and it uses the interest proceeds to lend more and more against assets and to indebt the economy more and more. The ideal is, in order to be economically independent, you have to prevent the financial dynamic from growing and taking you over, as we'll be discussing in the fifth lecture of the series. The financial privilege that America has, the dollar privilege, is the capstone of U.S. international strategy. And it's the dollar's role not only as a dominant means of payments, but to run balance of payments deficits without limit by printing as many dollars as it wants to finance the costs of its military empire and political bribery and meddling and interference in foreign politics. So the financial privilege essentially is the capstone of preserving the dollar's role, dominant role, and in order to have an independent alternative, other countries need the money creation privilege to take it back into the public domain as a public infrastructure utility controlled to allocate its own income in a way that will help it grow to benefit its own population, not to benefit foreign investors from the United States or its satellites.
好了，那大家也可以据此来看，为什么中国是在21世纪的第2个10年，当开始大量的签署双边货币协定，跟各个发展中国家都建立用人民币结算的这种贸易的时候，变成了美国的主要敌人。这就是因为你要推动国际合作嘛，你这个人民币是很难在你仍然维护金融主权的情况下，我们的人民币不可以这个自由兑换嘛？那你这个国家外汇储备是相对来讲直接由中央政府掌控的嘛？所以在这个金融不能简单的就完全放开人民币的这个自由兑换的这种情况之下，那我们现在只是贸易向下，资本向下还是控制的，所以在这种情况之下呢，那人民币只能自己去跟那些周边的跟人民币有直接相关的、跟贸易比较多的，跟他们去形成人民币的结算，其实双边各自用本币结算，类似像这些安排，其实就是在逐渐形成更多的国际合作，所以这一点呢，也符合哈德森在他的这个讲座中所提到的这个观点。那同时在他的讲座中，哈德森教授回顾了历史上的所谓债务赦免。他说呢，美元霸权和美元推动全球化的金融特权才是美国国际战略的基石。